Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put a spotlight on an album in prog or related genres that I think prog fans will enjoy. I love uncovering the hidden gems and introducing them to you guys throughout the year, and I've got quite a great gem for you guys here to check out. I really recommend this to anybody watching. This is Dirt Poor Robin's new album Firebird, which I'm just totally obsessed with. I think this is an excellent record, and it's just really reignited my love of the band that is become super deep and treasured at this point in my lifetime. So I'm just so grateful for the band, for what they've accomplished here, and just the sound that they continue to develop throughout their career. It's just really fascinating and beautiful to my ears, at least. Dirt Poor Robins isn't really a traditional prog band. I don't think they'd consider themselves prog at all, but they appeal to a prog rock crowd because of their adventurous spirit and nature, how they're willing to go outside of the boundaries of just standard conventional mainstream music and go into different genres and different styles. And they have this like cinematic and theatrical style to them that I think lends itself well to a prog fan. In fact, if I were to label this music, I would probably call it like cinematic theatrical rock. You know, that's really the label that they should be known for. They're a group from, I believe they initially came from Louisville, Kentucky. Neil and Kate DeGrade, a couple that is fantastic musicians and fantastic songwriters, and they come together on this record in a fabulous way. They've had quite a cool career up to this point. Their first album, The Cage, came out way back in 2007, and they're well known for conceptual records. Everything they do pretty much has a concept behind it and a story that they're trying to tell. Dead Horse was one of their previous ones that told a story. In fact, this record, Firebird, is set in the same universe as Dead Horse, apparently. Between Dead Horse and this record, they had an album called Queen of the Night, which was somewhat of like a soundtrack to a series of videos that they put out that told this kind of old-timey 30s kind of silent film type story, and the music really accompanied that fantastically well. But this music's more in line with the vibe they were going for on Dead Horse, which brings a bit of a more 80s synth kind of sheen to the sound that they've been come to know. And I think this one leans even heavier into this 80s synth dark wave kind of sound that they're really bringing to the table, but still doesn't sacrifice who they are at their core. Their more vaudevillian kind of theatrical approach that they always bring into their music, I think, is here as well. The story itself, I think they specifically like to keep their stories a little bit mysterious and let the listener really uncover it and unpack it themselves and decide for themselves what to take away from it. So I'm not going to delve too deep into like the story itself because I'm still interpreting it and figuring it out. And I believe the band has mentioned that they're going to put out a graphic novel sometime in the future that'll help explain the story even further and give more of a background to the storyline. They're also going to be doing a Kickstarter for the vinyl, which I'm going to be like one of the first adopters of that to sign up for because I'm super excited to have this record on vinyl. But for now, it's available on pretty much any streaming service you could ever imagine. You could buy it on iTunes. You could buy it on Bandcamp as well for the digital version, and it's well worth your time and effort to seek it out, to purchase it, to listen to it in whatever fashion you're comfortable with because it's just incredible, great music. It sort of has this sci-fi 80s apocalyptic landscape that you're working within. It's a futuristic record, but kind of retro-futuristic in a sense because it does harken back to some sounds that you might have expected back in like the 80s era of music. And I think that's a really interesting aesthetic. It reminds me of like a Blade Runner kind of vibe, the like 80s sci-fi thriller kind of soundscape. And the record, I think, really delves into futuristic society where people are being maybe subjugated in some kind of fashion. There's leaders that are a bit of these like overbearing overseers over the population and trying to control them, and there's something to do with AI in the role of this society, this futuristic society. It takes place between 2077 and 3077, which are two time periods that are played with in the Dead Horse album, so you're kind of getting a spotlight on society in this futuristic way, and it's bringing in some issues that we're facing in modern day, but putting them into this futuristic setting kind of as a warning call of like, this is what could happen in the future if we're not careful about where we're heading as a society today. So, which all great sci-fi, I think, does that. A lot of sci-fi is kind of warning you of what could happen in society in the future if we stay on our current trajectory and don't correct certain things that are going wrong in society. I think that's a common trope in sci-fi and is a great aspect of some of the greatest storytelling and writing in any genre, really. And like I mentioned, what I love about this record is they're bringing a very specific new kind of landscape to the table, this 80s sci-fi apocalyptic landscape, but they're not sacrificing who they are at their core. There's a certain specific quality that they have as a group that's still definitely intact, even though they're switching up their sound for this record. They're still able to morph and change into different styles to suit the purposes of the story, delving into more funk type sounds, some harder rock, some 80s synth, some operatic moments, some poppier sounds. What's brilliant about what they're doing is that even though they're utilizing all these different genres in their sound, it still sounds like a cohesive record. It still fits within this one landscape and style and tells this story really well. I think that's what they do really well is bring together these concepts that are the glue to hang all of this disparate music together and make it feel like a cohesive, singular piece. And I really appreciate and respect that. I think it's really a fascinating thing that they're able to do. And one of the bands that stands out to me in the genre that has a similar vibe but sounds totally different but has a similar quality is the Deer Hunter, who are also able to occupy these cool conceptual feels, but also able to morph and change into different styles of music, but able to make it fit into a singular vision of the world that they're inhabiting in whatever record that you're listening to. And I think that's perfectly showcased here by Dirt Poor Robins. The album begins with Political, which is a great stomping opener, gives you that melancholy, darker vibe that the record has over the course of the runtime. Catchy, but still maintains that kind of darker spirit. Talking about the political state of the futuristic world that we're occupying here. Cry Wolf has a beautiful soundscape and these heavenly vocal harmonies on the chorus, but it still retains this kind of dark, haunting vibe that gets more intense as it proceeds through the track. You'll Never Hear It Coming is one of my favorites. I love the dreamy kind of 80s pop elements that open this up and gives you this kind of breezy, glitchy 80s pop sound that just is a total masterpiece of a track. I really love the whole soundscape and the aesthetic that this track gives. That leads right into Fever Dream, which gives you some ominous soundscapes before we get into this kind of grooving funk guitar sound and hand claps with this infectious kind of head bopping groove. It's really fantastic. The verses and stuff have this kind of fascinating classical piano underneath these like electronic sounding drums, leading to a stomping chorus with more infectious melodies, and we get a guitar solo that pays homage perhaps to Brian May from Queen a bit in its sound and style. Just a fantastic piece of work. Beauty Will Save the World is one of the highlights of the record as well. Dark soundscapes open this up before we get the piano and Kate's heavenly vocals throughout this piece. This is one of the more operatic, kind of beautiful ballads, very slow and purposeful. The chorus is just heavenly with these sumptuous vocal harmonies backed by more orchestral arrangements. The second verse adds a bit of that 80s sheen into the sound to give you that aesthetic that the record has. There's beautiful swells of sounds with those orchestral elements and vocal choirs, and it's just an epic and masterfully done track that has beautiful melodies, continues in this dark, melancholy vibe. It gives just that slight glimmer of hope that beauty is what could save the world. I think this is a very important artistic statement by the band, that it's the beauty of art that can kind of save us if we let it, if we take the lessons from it that we need to and bring this beauty about into our lives and let it transform us. I think that's partly what we're going for here in the messaging of this track. To the Heights is totally just a pop banger, so to speak, just a cool pop masterpiece in the lines of like a Lady Gaga perhaps, retains a lot of that 80s synth feel, and is just a fun, bouncy, cool pop song that in a better world, I think could be a massive pop hit. If bands like this could get that kind of of acclaim and attention, it would be a fabulous radio single that I think would catch on quite well. All at Once is a beautiful track, beautiful soundscapes, tinkling pianos. Neil's excellent vocals are spotlighted here. Just beautiful, gorgeous track, showcasing those 80s textures so well, and swells of emotion in the music as they're exploring the topic at hand. It's just a really fantastic track that showcases a lot of that passion and emotion that they're going for to give meaning to this record. Holy Roller is another fun rocker with an infectious groovy guitar riff, a great bounce to it and energy. You feel a little bit of their typical like vaudevillian style underneath this track, and I think it works fantastically well. One of the standouts that was just a lot of fun to bop my head along to, and I found just to be a really fascinating, fun track. So Long to Yesterday is another really interesting, bouncier kind of track as well. Starts with some crowd noise, some instrumental ramping up with the guitar grooves that are coming, and you hear a bit of like, it's almost like they're giving this live performance, and then they launch into this bouncy power pop kind of vibe as it gets going, and it's just a fantastic journey of a track, really super fun, and adds another element to their sound, this kind of bouncy power pop kind of feel in a live setting that showcases an interesting plot element to their story. Empty is a track that's very slow and haunting with chiming keys before Kate's dark, beautiful vocals enter into the fray. Very orchestral and dark, giving you a lot of focus on those bewitching vocal melodies, and it ends with a dark and twisted coda of Beauty Will Save the World as well, before we move into a shorter track, The Imperishables, which has a big 80s soundscape with digitized vocals. But the real highlight of this is when it morphs into this Firebird theme before it moves into the final track, Firebird, which I believe is using a bit of Stravinsky's Firebird as its main melody and theme, but morphing it into an anthemic ending that's just hits all the heights of what I love in music. It's just a fantastic closing track that's uplifting and soars and gives you this bright burst of hope and light after all of these darker, more melancholy sounds that have come before it. I think it just soars, and that theme that keeps running throughout that's chanted through the vocals is just magical. It really brings this all home and is something that catches in my ear and I can't forget it. It's beautiful and one of the best pieces of music that I've heard this year. So if you couldn't tell already, I absolutely adore this record. I think it's fun and varied. It has a darker and more melancholy vibe compared to Queen of the Night that they did, but I think it fits the concept and fits the theme of what they're going for. And there's still fun, bouncy, cool, poppier tracks throughout this track list that gets you moving and gets you vibing. So it's not just all a dark, melancholy slog of an album. It balances itself really well between these darker atmospheres and more operatic soundscapes to these more bouncier, poppier feels. I think it's balanced expertly well, and it never becomes boring. It's just a captivating listen all the way throughout. Every track has something special and interesting that accompanies it, and I just can't get enough. It's an addictive record that I have on repeat and probably will continue to have on repeat for the next several weeks, months, years, however long. A glowing recommendation, which I'm prone to do on this channel. Every recommendation is glowing in its own fashion, but this is a special release that I want to give extra push towards and want people to hear. So thank you guys for joining me on this new album spotlight. I hope you appreciated it and that it gives you something to get excited over and to look forward to. Really fun music, and I'm excited to keep listening to it, to be honest. I'll probably re-listen to the album even after I film this. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope to catch you in a future episode. Enjoy the music, everybody!